Well, thank you for this. So
Oh
you're
no.
starting a new Tiki newsletter? Is that what's
Yeah,
going on?
I thought it would be fun because uh first of all it keeps me busy, keeps me creative, right? And it just seemed like a interesting way to kind of learn things myself and then also share them with like some people on my Facebook group and just in general hopefully try to grow it and see what
Great.
happens with it. Yeah.
Well, hopefully I can help you. I have not really told my story to very many people, so
Well, yeah, and I'm
hopefully.
really curious because I mean, your work is, and I hate to call it work because it's art, but it's beautiful and it's unique. It's unlike, anything else that I've seen out there, and it
Well, thank you.
really,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I feel like it really kind of captures the spirit of at least the type of things that I love. So I wanted to kind of.
It's been a journey, I'll say that much. So,
Well, I mean, well, I guess jump right in. Tell me a little bit about the journey. What's your background and how did you end up
well,
doing what
let's
you're
see
doing?
where to start. Because it has been a long journey. I don't want to bore you with details, but it started for me, of course, when I was a kid. I mean, just a little kid. I started drawing and playing, redesigning doors and just doing odd things like that. And they always said I was touched, and so, I mean, touched really. So, but one thing led to another, and I kept creating. And then eventually I met my wife. She was 16 and I was 18, and we got married and had kids. And I went to work, started a business, yeah, ran a dairy
And
business.
where
And
was this? Where were you
that,
living?
that was in Colorado. I was born in the Midwest. That's probably where I should start. I was born in Indiana, so raised on a farm kid, right? Far away from any tiki bars or anything like that. So, and then we moved to Colorado, to Boulder, when I was very small, in the third grade or so. So, growing up there, there wasn't tiki around there either. There was no established bars, not like there was here in California or anything like that. And uh, but I started work. I started my own business or working for other people, and then started my own business. And then one thing led to another. I ended up having to sell that business, and I just got into school late in life. It must have been I was 30 something when I decided to get into college and follow my dream, which was to go to art school and do all that. I've been thinking of that since I was a kid.
Right.
And so I did. I sold the business. I was able to sell the business. That's pretty hard to do these days. And I sold the business and went to school and had a lot of fun. I mean, some of the best teachers I've ever had were the very first old community college classes in clay that I had. Those were the guys that really sunk the passion into me.
Where did
And
you go to art school?
I went to Denver. I went to Metro in Denver, and so I got a BA in fine arts with a ceramics emphasis. And so, but I've had my hands in clay for many many years. I just couldn't get enough of it, so I just had to keep going. So moved out here, and I had two teenage girls in tow to San Diego from Boulder, and it was just right after I graduated, and I kind of had to chase the money. I had two kids and a family to raise, so I got a job with a guy and created a position for myself. I started to do. But well, I was inventing product with this gentleman, like DRTV type product. And then we also, had accounts like Walmart, Target, things like that. But QVC was our main target, the home shopping networks. So I was inventing the better mousetrap for these people. You know what I mean? And I did that for 20 some years. And then, of course, we would shoot all our own shows and script all our own stuff and wore a lot of hats in there. And that enabled me to fly around the world and see the planets, all the QVCs in Europe, and all the factories in China and Taiwan and shit like that. I was there. So for those 20 some years. And so I had to kind of put the art on a back burner, but knowing all the time that I was always going to be here now, creating, and so here I am. That's a long story, very short. But here I am. And this is where I'm gonna spend the twilight of my years, right here in this studio. This is the center of the universe right here. So
And
so
your artwork, your ceramics, are at least what I've seen of it, and you may have a bigger collection of things that you're interested in that you do, but it's all, seems very much inspired by tiki, by Papua New Guinea, by that sort of style of of artwork. Is that something that grew out of your travels, or is that something that did you land in tiki bars and just fall in love with it, or how are you inspired?
well, let's put it this. I was I guess it was like 2003 maybe or something like that. I found an old palm log on the side of the road down at the end of my street, and I decided, well, I'm going to carve a tiki. And so I got on the internet and I found Tiki Central, right?
Okay,
You're
sure.
aware of Tiki Central.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Anybody that's been around is aware of Tiki Central, right? It all started there kind of for me. And so I went on and I started, listening to Ben's art and some other people about how to carve stuff. And you got to remember, I'm fresh out of college here, right? So I mean, I start to go in and start to throw my twists into tiki at the time. I hadn't read Sven's book or any of that stuff. I just started to dive in and carve. And if you're on my Instagram page, you can go down far and you'll see rabbits, tiki rabbits, and things like that. This is what I was doing right out. I mean, I was doing these murdering rabbits and warring rabbits and things like this when I was in college, and I was having a great time with it. So I just carried on the rabbit theme. I decided, okay, I'm going to make tiki rabbits in all kinds of ways. And of course that didn't really go over too well. So I gained some, I wouldn't call them enemies, just protagonists, I guess, or something. But and Sven too, he didn't like it at all. And couldn't understand why. As an artist, I thought, well, I need to change things. Art's always the change of things, moving, constantly going. This is how we survive. And here they were stuck in this thing. And that was, I mean, after I read the books and everything, well, I got it. I bought the books. I mean, that's what they were always saying. And I didn't even think to read on the site when I went on there. It says, this is all about this book, Tiki. And this is, I mean, we're following the writings of Sven and stuff like this. And if I'd kind of read deeper, well, just read that, I probably would have figured it out, but I didn't. So now I do. I've gained a lot of friends in the Tiki community, and that's one reason I'm still here is because of all these people that I was able to acquire as friends.
That's,
Squid and but just a bunch of other people are good buddies. Squid, do you know Squid? Have you heard his name?
yeah, sure. Of course.
Dave? Yeah, he came into the scene. We started working in the studio together really early on, and after I ended up going back to work for John, because I had little stints where like 1 year I would just kind of hang. I wouldn't go work for John, the place I was telling you before, and I would come and work out of the studio, and we had clay jams. I had people over and just going on. It was nuts, from Tiki Central, chops. Everybody was carving around here, and that's what a clay jam is. We just open the studio and everybody, even if they didn't know anything, would come and learn. And so that's what we had fun doing. And then Dave stayed with me all those 20 years I was working for John. He was part of my he was like a gunslinger for hire for me. I mean, the guy draws fantastic. And so any of the product designs or anything I had to get ready for buyers meetings or something like that, I'd have Squid pencil me something out. It's great with a pencil. So much better than I. So anyway, I'm leading you down all kinds of weird paths here. Let me get back to the main question, which was about Tiki Central and how did I find Tiki. Um, Well, after I read the books, I got what mid-century tiki was all about, and I've noticed some confusion about it today out there. People have it is, it isn't, and that kind of thing. There's a lot of different moderns in modernism. There's mid-century modern, and there's all these different times where all this different types of modernism came in, and I think that's a confusion for some people. And I think the other thing is just to read. I think there is a vocal miscommunication happening because when Sven came in and these other people that were finding out about tiki, they called it tiki because they didn't know what else to call it. The word tiki had been around, but they were using tiki to wrestle everything up, put it all in a bow. And that's okay. They had to call it something, but that I think that confused a lot of people. Even today, I think that confuses a few people. And I think that it's hard as an artist to, when you're in a revival, to try to revive something from the past.
Right.
It's really kind of impossible as an artist to do that because you're constantly moving forward.
Yeah, I feel
You
like
know,
the goal of most artists is to move things forward and evolve art, as opposed to saying I'm gonna like paint like a Michelangelo, or I'm gonna or sculpt like,
well, true,
you know,
very true, very
it's
true. And
kind of like
I
what's been
think
done,
that
not let's do something new. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And my favorite are, as I've gotten older, of course, my styles, my everything that I like about art changes as I change through time. And I think now my favorite art is absolutely children's art. I just love it. The freedom, the expression, everything that happens. I could just line my walls with kids' art and that would be fine. Uh, so getting into primitive art was kind of a natural for me. And I didn't do that until I found Tiki Central. And it was only when I found Tiki Central that I began an interest in Oceania and, Pacific arts. And then I just started falling in love with things that I was seeing. I was relating it to these childhood visions of things that were happening. And then when I found out they were making ceramic things to drink rum out of, I'm like, oh my God, I'm in. And I don't even really drink a lot of rum. But I thought, how cool is that? And then to top it all off, I was reading into Papua New Guinea and some in the drums there. You'll notice that most of the vessels that I'm doing are all drums.
Hmm.
And that's because their drums are functional. They're not really, well, there is an aesthetic to them, but they're functional. They're meant to contain the spirit of a dead person. So, like, we can go grab Uncle Bob off the shelf, right? Sit down and have a powwow drum in with him. You know what I mean? And I thought, well, how appropriate to have a drum mug that you can pour a rum drink into. And it's like, come here, Larry.
They are the
Right?
perfect shape, right?
Yeah. So it's like, I thought, well, to me, that was just my own little spin on it that I really enjoyed. I could see beyond what it was into something else. You know what I mean?
It's
And then
interesting.
about,
Oh,
yeah,
oh, no, sorry. I found it interesting about your comment about how you love children's artwork. And it did
yeah,
make me
oh yeah.
think that there's this sort of instant appeal to the Papua New Guinea art, the masks and the symbolism, whether it's the crocodiles, the birds, the faces, the things. And
Hmm.
you're right, it has this very childlike quality to it. And you can imagine it almost being drawings that children, or shapes that children would
Very
interpret.
free in expression. It's not
Yeah,
like, I mean,
very
they only had a
expressive.
couple of colors, so
Yeah, and I think maybe that's does sort of trigger some kind of instant appeal factor,
yeah, I think so. I mean, it certainly did for me. And there's always, I think for every artist, at some point, they get to a point in their life when they desire to go back to drawing like they did when they were a kid. I mean, really, the
yeah,
freedom of that expression, the emotion, the color choices, everything is just, it's just like automatic drawing or drawing on LSD, you know. So it's really cool. And that's kind of where I kind of wanted to go back. My paintings are similar, you know, I'm reverting back to more abstract in work in my paintings and things like that, which I never did in college. They were all more realist type drawings and paintings, which you don't see much of. You see more of my ceramics. So
Right, exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'd love to see them though. But and
Oh yeah.
your ceramics, eh, correct me if I'm wrong, but um, what differentiates them from most of the, you know, the tiki mugs that we see out there? It seems to me
Mm.
that each one is a hand built sculpture, right? They're all one of a kind, aren't they? You're not
Well,
they
they are lately, and I'm leaning more to that. When I first saw that people on Tiki Central, when I first saw that people wanted mugs, of course, I was carving then. I was carving wood, so I only went to doing the mugs because at the time people liked that. You know, I mean, there wasn't a lot of mug makers. The few that you know that were around, and uh, so I part of that clay jams was to show people how to make them. Ooh, that really turned some heads when I was showing people how to do stuff with plaster. So yeah, there was a lot of artists that didn't like that at the time, but it worked out, and that's how I met Squid, and all those people came over to have a clay jam, and we started doing things together. So I'm sorry, what was the question again, Ken?
Well, I know
What did,
maybe it was less of a question than an observation. That it seemed like at least what you're doing now is it's all very one of a kind.
oh,
And
right, right, right,
where I
right,
was
right.
going with that, I guess, is that it also feels like some of the limitations that you have, that not you personally, that you know, mug designers have when they have to basically pull mugs out of a mold
Yeah.
is the shapes, right? And if you're
Oh
hand
yeah,
sculpting something
yeah.
that you're gonna
That was
fire.
the plan all along. Having built things in China, you know, mugs were coming out of China back in 2003 and stuff, and still are, you know, China and Mexico, everywhere else. So I tried to design a mug and build something that nobody over there is going to want to copy. They don't. Have you ever seen the Babalu thing come
Yeah,
out of there? No.
well, exactly. And that's what I love about them is that it's unlike anything that you can that you see elsewhere because they couldn't. Yeah,
And they do. They are tending to go to one of a kind things. Where I was going before was I did do a couple of mold runs, very short ones, you know. I did one that was a Cobra Fang mug, and that wasn't my design. That was a copy of off of a menu from the Islander, I believe. And then I wanted to do that mug because nobody had ever found the original. So I
right.
was all the way done with it. I was doing it online so everybody could see the steps I was taking to do it, right? On Tiki Central, I was doing it. And I was almost done with it and had everything wrapped up, and I was pulling my first molds off of it, and somebody finds the original. Boom. It was like an instant where, you know, the vintage tiki took over the revival, you know, and spanked it once right there. So, but that was fun. You know, I only did like 50 of those or something. I have another one, uh, uh, Manua. Sorry, I can't pronounce the name. I have another one, another drum mug that I've done that was also a copy from a mug that was in Sven's book, and it was because everybody liked it, and so I did it. And I didn't do very many of those either. But you know what? That was too many. Doing 20 or 50 was way too many for me.
Right.
I really like just playing in clay and getting, you know, getting it to that leather hard state, and that's the whole turn on for the thing for me. So I just don't have patience to do 100 of something alike. It just
Right.
is, it's not in me.
So
So yes,
are most of the pieces that you're creating now yeah, things that you make, put on Instagram, and then somebody says, I want to buy that, or are they custom commissions?
been wild, Ken. Yes, that's how I've been doing. I haven't really had to do any sales, so to speak. I've just people knowing who I am and from where it's come. As soon as I finish something, that somebody says I want it, and or somebody calls me up and says I'd like to have something of yours. I'd say sure, I'll build you something, and then I say if you like it, fine. If you don't, get something else. You know. I really try to make it as easy for me as possible out here. I am retired, and
It shouldn't be
mugs
difficult.
is a right. Mugs is a way to just kind of support the studio out here. It supports my passion to touch clay. It's giving me this feel into playing with Oceana that I really like, that primitive art, and kind of combining it with sharper elements, geometric elements, and things like that, and modernism. And it's opening the door up so that I can touch base on other art, what I consider art. And so the real thinking stuff, and so that gives me an opportunity to do that. Like recently, I just found out the name of your bar is called what?
Stolen Idol.
The Stolen Idol?
Yeah.
Stolen Idol, right. I saw pictures of it. It's really cool, again.
Oh, thanks.
Really cool. Um, so I've got a stolen idol in this sculpture. It's from Tahiti. It's from Rurutu, Tahiti. It was made sometime in the 1600s, and it's in the let me get the little book here. Well, I'll get it in a minute. It's in the British Museum right now, and it was sent there. It was turned over by the islanders of Rurutu in 1700s. In the late 1700s, it was given to a bunch of Christian uh, missionaries over there as a sign that, hey, we're following Christianity now. Here's our God, right?
Yeah.
Here's our God. Yeah, well, you take him. You do whatever you want with him. And his back comes off, and inside him were like 30 little small gods, that kind of a thing. And so he was shipped back to London in the 1700s, and just kind of forgot about in the archives over in France over there until the London Museum took him, of like, wow, this is like incredible. What is this? And then they sent all kinds of people out to find out what it was, and to find out what it meant and stuff like that. And there's no real definite answers, which just increased my attention span. I was like, wow, this is really cool, because I mean, people don't really even know what it is. Hold on, let me grab this book. Hold on.
Studio.
Oh.
It's
So
exactly what I would, it's exactly what I would hope an artist's studio would look like.
this is my version of which is a
I can't quite, it's a little, yeah, you pan over there. Perfect.
yeah.
Nice.
So this is my version of the God. Now, this is not just a God. This is a God that creates gods. It's not even a God. It's just something that creates gods. So the ultimate being, if you will, right? To me, had to have, shoot, I still got to find the original picture in order for it to make sense for you. Hold on. I don't want it to fall over while you're sitting there looking at it. Hold on. See if I can see. So this is really the original.
Okay.
I'm sure you've seen it before. It's very, I mean, it's people consider it to be like the foremost, Polynesian idol that's out there, right? In scholar world today. But nobody really knows what it is. They don't know. It's like it opens up in the back here. So it could have been a reliquary, like hold a skull up here and then line up bones in the back, things like that. Most likely was a reliquary, but they don't know who was in it or anything like that. And then secondly, they think it's a god that, not a god, but a being that creates gods. So all these are little gods on its back that it's either holding, getting ready to release, or exposing from its skin, expelling them from its skin or whatever. So it was just very, very intriguing to me. So I found it. So to me, it needed to have both sexes. It needed to be male and female because I mean, it's making gods, right? I mean, what else does it need? And so, and then I had its little fingers, you see, creating little gods coming off its hands too. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it. It's very cool.
Yeah. So this is something that I'm playing with as far as art goes. And not that the mugs aren't art. They certainly are, you know. It just I think the art can get deeper, you know, a little more focused, a little stronger in other directions. And that's what I'm doing out here right now is I'm having fun with this. You know, it's a blast to be doing this right now. And it's a blast that people are interested in what I'm doing. So I find that just amazing.
And so something like this type of a project, is this just something you're just doing for yourself? Are you gonna try to exhibit things? You're gonna sell them? Or are you
Oh,
what's
you're the well, sure. I mean, everything. If I kept everything I did, I'd have just shit everywhere, you know. So I don't I don't keep anything. I get it's kind of like when you see on the Instagram, part of the mug making process is I really love designing a mug so that it looks good, really good, with a cocktail or a cocktail in it, with a
Mhm.
garnish in it. Things like that are important to me. So I think about that prior to designing the mug. You know, I'll even simplify the design of the mug so that it leads up to the garnish, you know, to kind of expose it. Or if it's a really detailed, here, let me grab one. If it's a real, if it's a real detailed mug, can you see that okay?
Yeah. If
Kind of
you
tough.
if you raise it up a little bit there. Yeah. Yeah, there we go.
So if it's a real detail mug, you see, I'm concentrating in making the glaze only one color, so that as I come up, you know, the whole thing works together. So I'm not trying to overpower the cocktail with the design, not you know, instead of having so much design and not enough, you know, color. So I always think about those things too when I'm designing.
And then for your designs, where are you drawing the inspiration from? Things that you've have, things that you've seen in books, things from your travel, certain masks, certain, I mean, are you
Yeah,
going back?
well, everything's right now has been coming from the Pacific
Mhm.
uh, area. There's just so much, you know. You'll notice that I don't do a lot of tikis. I really don't. I don't. There's like four main tikis, right? And I haven't done any of them because everybody's doing them. It's like there's a different, you know, a little bit of different personality change in each one, but there's you know, there's like thousands of them. So you'll find me more into like doing drums and doing things like that that I like that spiritual connection to the drums. I mean, that's just great, right? So I love that. And I try to do things that most people aren't doing. And there's a world plethora of things out there to draw inspiration from. You don't really need to, you know, I can draw inspiration just by moving the clay. The clay can move in a little certain way, and wham, I see an emotion in that, and I'm building on that, you know. So that's how most of my designs start. Is let's just start by moving the clay, and where it starts to go is where I start to follow uh, a lot of
Typically
times.
on one of your uh mugs, like the one you just showed me or something similar, like how long will you spend between coming up with the idea till you have uh, a finished mug?
Usually I come up with the idea as I'm throwing the clay down and around. I really don't have a that's not always the case though, Ken. You know, there are times when I'll be thinking about something for a year before I actually start to throw it together. And then other times, most of the time I'll just be sitting there and I'll just be playing with clay and then something will take off and then the ideas start going. I've never had a problem coming up with ideas. That's never been an issue for me. Even my old boss would really like to have me back. I think he misses the ideas coming out. So, but yeah, that's never been a problem at all. I just really enjoy doing what I'm doing right now. It's a lot of fun. Sounds like you do too. You really enjoy
I do, yeah.
making movies and stuff.
I
Yeah,
do,
that's
yeah, I
great.
do. Uh, my, my my wife asked me, what the fascination was with the tiki bar, and I said it's like a movie set that's never finished.
Yeah,
You're just
yeah.
constantly
I have a
designing, redesigning, coming
right,
like,
absolutely. Now I have a lot of friends that are into tiki, and everything that they own is tiki. I am not that way. I have some tiki things, of course, but this is really kind of a bohemian lifestyle I live. I mean, I have a little bit of everything in here. There's China in here. There's, everything is in here. So I live in a world like that, embraced by all cultures and everything. So
and
but I do really like Pacific art right now. It's just something, and then people also like it. I mean, that's a good reason to hang on to that right now for me, is because people are responding so well to it.
yeah, we,
So,
we, we definitely seem to be in, kind of a tiki resurgence where
oh man, it's crazy, crazy.
more tiki bars are opening than closing, I think. You know,
Yeah, and so well, of course, tiki's the tiki mug used to be just it was like carnival glass, right? People would throw them in the fireplace after they were done drinking out of them. They really didn't mean anything, and they were made that way too. They were made cheap. And back in that day, uh, I mean, ceramics was really not considered an art form in the 50s. In the later 50s, it started to become more of an art form, the expressionistic art or abstract art world. Uh, in the 50s college scene, that it started to become an art then. So right at the same time.
where do you think it's headed?
What, the tiki mugs?
Tiki, just the tiki scene in general, tiki, yeah, tiki mugs, tiki bars, as as
Well,
it's becoming more and more popular.
it's already kind of hit a mainstream. Yeah. It's like back in the Tiki Central, and you may agree. I mean, I don't know. You've been around since Tiki Central days, right? 2003 and that kind of time frame.
I wasn't as into tiki as I am now. This is
Oh,
relatively, relatively new for me. I was
uh,
like you raising kids and working in film and
join the club.
and
Yeah.
doing all the stuff, but I've now had more time to kind of explore other things that interest me, and so
And Tiki's one. Well, congratulations. Welcome to the
building the
club.
tiki bar.
Yeah. No.
So I discovered Tiki Central. Actually, I knew about it, but it had shut down. And so
Oh, right.
then,
Yeah. Yeah.
then
Yeah. It
they
did shut down. That was quite the
shut it down,
scene.
and then
And
some.
everybody was sad, of course, and that was really the internet back then. I mean, I didn't go on the internet. There was no social media for me, just Tiki Central. That was kind of the hub that I played on, other than working.
Yeah, I just
um
remember Tiki T being this funky little bar in
oh, right, I want to
Hollywood
go to the
that
TTT.
we would go to every now and then.
So but I think mugs, they're gonna, I mean, tiki in general, I think is still gonna get a lot bigger. I think it's already gotten huge to where it's like a mainstay now. Back in the Tiki Central days, it was kind of an avant-garde thing to be involved with, and now it's become more mainstream as it's kind of picked up, and people keep throwing little additions onto it, which really kind of pees off the old tiki guard. Which I understand, but it's just going to happen. That's just the way things happen in life, and they always roll like this forwards. So um, I think it's here to stay. I think, and then in all kinds of, I think the older, well, I don't really know, honestly, to tell you the truth, what's going to happen in the end. But I think it's gonna be here. I think that if you try to repeat history verbatim, it won't work. You know what I mean? So I think there has to be some nuances in the revival in order to refreshen the image. I think you can't, if you stay with just the old guard, it'll become stagnant after a bit. And so I think people keep trying to throw in nuances into it, but I don't believe that they're hitting the mark that well. You know what I mean? I think, I think that there's a lot of room to play with the artworks that are coming out of the Pacific, the Oceania, still tons. If that's what interests you, to me, like I was telling you before, it's just the processes that seem to matter to me, the childlike,
Yeah.
primitive images that keep coming up. And so I'm putting the two together. So that's where mine crosses the line there. Um, yeah, whatever happens, Ken, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be around. I'll put it that way. I don't know where people are going to take it. It seems like, there's this refreshing part of the old guard that's standing out, and tiki bars are blossoming up all over the country. Tiki bars like yours, home ones, are amazing. They're just popping up everywhere. Now I want to do one too. I want to carve the ghosts and stuff,
Well, I think
because I'm all for it as well. But
it's interesting how
yeah,
where different people, what each person sort of gets from it, right? You've got
right.
people who, for some people, it's all about going and having a cocktail, and for other people, it's the escapism of being in this tropical environment, and for some people, it's the art. I think
Yeah, yeah.
people. It's
Well, the
for
escapism is another thing that's always kind of fooled with me a little bit, because I mean, art always, any kind of art's an escape to me. You know what I mean? It puts me in another planet zone, kind of, in a way. So, uh, and then people will say I escaped reality a long time ago. So, you know, and I'm just kind of wandering around. But the escapism that happened in the 50s obviously can't happen today.
right.
Uh, these people didn't think like we think today. I know this because I was there. I was around all of these people, in the 50s, and they didn't think like we think today. Of course, there were all kinds of different ways that people thought and what was special to them. The thing that I noticed about tiki and the old guard here is that a lot of my friends grew up with tiki. They had tiki down the street, and maybe their parents wouldn't let them go to it. It's because there's naked women and booze and all that other stuff. But they just, it was held in their brains, and it was a fascinating thing for them as children. And that became, everything. And if you think, like, for me, it was cowboys and Indians as a kid, in the Midwest. For them, it was seeing the tiki bar down the street, and so obviously they grew up, and that
I
it's
grew up in
always going to
Southern.
be, some kind of release for them, mental release to
I
bring
think so.
that
I
to.
mean, I grew up in Southern California, and uh, spent way too much time at Disneyland in the Enchanted Tiki Room, and so that was sort of what
Yeah,
it takes me a little bit back to, back to that.
yeah, and those are important things. When you get older, I think you'll find that that's what happens as you start remembering your past and your childhood, and all these things come up. Those are the important things. People that loved you, people you loved, those, stuff like that. And childhood memories is a big one, and they all have these that in common. Well, we used to cross by the Islander every night, and Dad would say to look out the other way, and so I've got a lot of friends like that, that were basically based here in California. So the rest of the world wasn't that lucky. I'm sorry, there was nothing in the farmlands where I grew up, like that. So uh you know, my loss.
Well, now
Yeah.
there's certainly, there's amazing tiki bars,
Oh,
as far from an ocean and an island as you can possibly get, right?
yeah, no kidding. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
So,
so has it inspired you at all to do more traveling, or and to actually, to get to?
probably less, probably less.
Oh,
I've, yeah, I was traveling to, right before I hung up the traveling shoes, I was traveling to China 4 or 5 times a year. And then I would travel to Europe at least twice a year to do the Germany, UK, Italy run. And then so I'm kind of traveled out. I would really like to go to Spain with my wife and
okay.
just spend a year, somewhere. I don't know where, I know Barcelona is beautiful.
Barcelona
It's
is
big,
amazing.
big city.
Yeah. I said,
And then some of the sea cities are, the Valencia and places like that look intriguing to me. We've been watching the little TV shows at night, where they where they go off and they try to find someone a home, in some weird place. So now we're kind of stuck on that. See, that's old people we are. Jeez, it's horrible.
Yeah, I've cooked up a plan to get a boat and head down to Mexico and then across to
Oh no, I read that. I read that about you.
uh,
Yeah,
go across to Tahiti and spend about a year or so, you know, just mucking
hanging
around
out.
with
Well,
it.
you should do it. You should go to Rutuhu.
Absolutely.
Rurutu. Well, see, that was another part of this thing that's such a mystery. If you get a chance to read up on it, when these people donated the original it's just capital A, little a, is how it's pronounced. They donated it, and there were probably 3,000 people, two or 3,000 people on the island. Right after that, they got these diseases from the Europeans that came over there and diminished the population down to like 200 people. So anybody that knew anything about this is now dead, right? So it's a mystery forever. No one will really know what this was.
Well, that's
So
because the people of the Marquesas were practically decimated by, you know, getting the
whalers and stuff.
European, uh, missionaries and visitors, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, these huge
So
thriving populations were pretty much wiped out. It's amazing
yeah,
they're still around. So,
absolutely.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, I think that for one, definitely gonna stay keep doing different things with, I might make a mug similar to one because someone said, oh, I like that one with the three heads or whatever. Can you do me something like that? And I'll say sure, but it's never going to be the same. I always like to throw in some kind of little mix, and if they're going to get something from me, that's kind of what it's going to be. I'm going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm going to love it. And it'll love me back, and hopefully when it relieves my studio, it's like a little piece of jewelry that they can put on. I always felt that, you should be the nicest looking thing that walks into any tiki bar. And by God, your drink should be the second nicest thing that looks good. So
now, do you
so
think people are taking your mugs and pouring rum in
I
them
got
and
a few of
making
them.
drinks, or are they putting them
Yeah,
on
I hope
shelves and
so.
displaying them, or
I
both?
hope so. Yeah, I hope they all use them. I think, well, how fun would that be? That's part of that's part of my fun is to see how they do. And I know there's a few guys that collect my mugs that take them out to the bar, take them to tiki tea and stuff like that, and swiggle stuff down. So yeah,
Well,
I'm fine with
I hope to take one to Tiki Tea myself someday.
there you go. We'll have to join you with one at tiki tea sometime. Now, what a great place. I still haven't been there, but I really want to go. So I'm just not much. I'll say I'm not much of a drinker. I drink maybe once a week. The neighbor and I get together and have a few beers and lie to each other, and that's about it.
Well,
So
I'm actually with you on that. I have to kind of like keep it in moderation, right? Or uh,
right, yeah. I mean, I love making the whole rum vessel. The idea, everything about it intrigues me. Just the thought of drinking all the rums that is a little much. Now I'm going to deny that, Ken, when you say that. I
it's
love rum, by God.
not that I don't. I actually do love it. It's just that my belly doesn't love it, and
Well, right, yeah. Well, mine either, for that matter. But I sure have an idea of fantasizing about the whole thing. I'd like to think I was James Bond walking into a tiki bar, but it's not going to work. So anyway,
so if people want to get in touch with you, want one of your beautiful mugs, they contact you through
I'm easy to find.
Instagram.
Yeah, all you got to do is just contact me and say, "Hey, dude, let's make a mug," and I'll do it for you. Or just say, "Put me on your list," and I'll put you on my list, and I'll
What's
make
what's the
something.
what's the wait time for one of these? How backed up is
It's
your
not
list?
really that long. I usually it takes me about 2 to 3 weeks to pull something out, unless I've got things going. I haven't been. Well, I don't know. I'll maybe get busier after you write this little article up. Who knows? But I haven't been out there really pitching myself, or doing anything like that, because it's all just been kind of coming around. Or if I do something, I post a picture of it, and it's unbelievably gone in like minutes. I don't see how that's even possible. It's hard for me to even fathom that somebody can sell a cast mug. Most of mine are not cast. Sometimes here's a good difference. I'll start with a casting, but it's just a plain cast. Like, let me hold on a sec. See, this is a plain casting. Nothing, no decoration or anything in it. And this is how I start. It's kind of like if I were going to throw a cylinder on something and then start decorating it. That's instead of throwing the cylinder, I'm just creating the cylinder.
Gotcha.
So I do that a lot in a lot of cases. And that's because I never did learn how to throw. When I went to college, everybody I went to school with threw, they literally got on a wheel and threw everything. That's part of being a ceramicist. And I just couldn't get into it at all. So I've thrown one pot my entire life. And when I when I showed up for grad school, I had made a bunch of stuff, fountains and big stuff that I hand built. And I threw them all in the back of this old station wagon, and I drove to the college, and I found Roger Lang, and I said, I'd like to come to school next semester, but I don't want to throw. It's like everybody throws, but I don't really like it. I said, can you just look at this right around the corner? And he turned the corner, and I had all this crap in the station wagon, and he looks at it and he goes, all right, you don't have to throw. We'll try it. And I graduated. I never threw anything. So, maybe I'll throw someday, but I never did like the idea of being caught in a cylinder, having to do a cylinder and then expand from that. I like the idea of being able to do this part here and that part there, and to build a sculpture, versus being stuck on a cylindrical shape. So
Yeah, no, your pieces feel more like pieces of sculpture than.
I try to do that. I try to make them look good in the round so that when you spin it around,
Mhm.
it looks good from every side. Try that. So,
Well, man, thanks, Rick. I appreciate you jumping on and telling
well,
your.
thank you, Ken. And I'm sorry I screwed up the days. I should
No,
know.
it's
I should know
confusing.
what it's like over there. It's
Being on
Thursday.
other sides of the world. That's, trust me, scheduling meetings is the hardest part of my job here.
When are you coming back to California?
Uh, we wrap up here at the end of August, so I'll be back beginning of
Oh
September.
my goodness, you're over there for a ways. Do you take the
Yeah,
whole family with you or just you?
my wife is coming out in about a week.
Oh, good,
My
good.
son just graduated from college, and
Oh, great.
he's working full time on a movie. He just
Wonderful.
got a job, so he's in LA doing post production on a Paramount project. And
That's so awesome.
my
It's
daughter,
like
who
father like son, huh? That's
he decided he wanted to give it a shot. He enjoys it.
yeah,
And my daughter's up in Canada. She lives in British Columbia. She went to school up there and
terrific.
loved it and stayed up there. So
Terrific. That's wonderful. Wonderful.
yeah, so
Well, it was really good to meet you. When you come back to California, let's get together some at the
yeah,
Tiki Tea. I'll bring
I
you a
come down,
mug. And we can
yeah, I come down to
have
San Diego quite a bit, so I'll
whatever you want to do. It sounds like a good deal to me.
sounds good.
So,
All right.
all right, Ken.
Thanks,
Well, hey,
Rick.
you take care. Enjoy the rest of the day. Have fun.
All right. And you
All right.
too.
Okay, man. Take
Okay.
care.
Bye.